Hey, guys, and welcome back to another episode. Got me on both screens there. All right, shout out to everyone out there, and welcome back. So today we're gonna be walking down the beach as we do our usual episode, talking about, well, is it still worth it? Is it actually still worth it to move out here to Mexico? So again, depends on who you're talking to out there. Everyone's gonna have a different answer. Of course, if you ask me, of course it's still worth it. It's beyond worth it. Are you kidding me? I'm always constantly pinching myself, as to how blessed I am to be out here and living my life out here and doing my thing out here. So yes, if you ask me, it's definitely worth it. But again, not everybody is me. Not everybody has the same wants and desires for life as me. And again, we're all very different. That's the whole idea, right? With the individuality of all of us out there. So, the reality is that, again, it really just depends on what it is that you're looking for out there. So today's video, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to go in depth, as we usually do here on Thursdays on our live streams, and we're going to be talking about, again, is it still worth it to you, to move out here to Mexico? So, these are all questions that you got to ask yourself. These are all things that you gotta, be honest with yourself about, as to, why is it you're moving out to Mexico, and so on and so forth. And again, the more honest you are with yourself, and the more you answer these questions that you have, about your own life, more honestly, the more you're going to come to that conclusion as to whether it's worth it to move out here or not. Again, everyone is completely different. So anyway, shout out to everyone out there in the chat. So far, we got a few of you guys out there. We got D Mao, Joseph, Cecil, Pedro, and a bunch of others, out there. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Cecil says he moved to Mexico 2 months ago, and it's still worth it. For sure, 100%. So I think for a lot of us out there, if you're moving out to Mexico for the right reasons, again, things that we've talked about multiple times out there in the past, well, and you're really not going to have much of a problem, moving out here. It's always going to be worth it because the things that you want are out here. And so on and so forth. But again, if you're simply just moving to Mexico, to save a few bucks, well, it might not be worth it to you as much as it used to be back in the day. And so again, these are the things that we're going to be talking about as to, pertaining as to, life out here in Mexico. So again, things have changed dramatically throughout the years. It's just got to be 100% honest. Things were very different when I first moved out here over 7 years ago. For some of you guys out there in the audience, or some of you guys out there, you guys have moved out here even longer than that. You guys have been here 10, 15, 20 years. And obviously, you're all going to have different opinions as well. Same as everyone else that's come out here fairly recently. You're all going to have different, ideas as to whether it's worth it or not. And again, the true reality is that it all boils down to you, the individual, as to why it is that you're even moving out here to begin with. Again, I've shared my story multiple times with you guys. The main reason I moved out here was for freedom. Again, it wasn't just economic freedom, but just freedom in general. It's just 100% honest with you guys. And so therefore, I've not only been able to find my freedom out here, but I've been able to maintain my freedom out here and really, live the way that I've always wanted to live. A life that I thought while I was in the USA was not possible. Period. End of story. Again, I remember, living in the USA, having a regular job, a regular life, like a lot of people do out there. And every single day, just dreading and hating having to go to work, having to continue, doing, another week. Again, time just kept passing by. There was no real progress to be made in my life per se, and it just felt like, again, you're just like a hamster on a treadmill, or what is it, a hamster on one of those wheels, right? And it's just, you're just gonna for a lot of people out there, they start losing hope because you feel like, oh, I'm never going to get off this hamster wheel. I'm never going to, be able to attain those things that I've always wanted. I cannot wait another 30 plus years to retire, to just be able to freely go to the beach and live, again, in the beach, on the mountains, wherever, just living that life that you've always wanted to live. That's why I'm always emphasizing, the retirement early. A lot of people ask me about my own personal retirement, and it's like, well, I mean, I'm already retired. I live the life that I've always wanted to live. Of course, you always, you still got to work and you still got to do things, but it's all, surrounded by the things that I want to do, and living in the place that I want to live, and having the lifestyle that I want to have. And, all these things, they were not, they didn't just happen to me because of luck. They didn't happen to me because of, just by chance. No, a lot of it happened. A lot of things in my life, especially since I've been out here in Mexico, or even made the move out to Mexico. A lot of all that stuff happened because of my hard work and dedication to not settling for anything less. I already knew what I wanted. I already knew that it was going to take a lot of work and dedication and sacrifice in order to get there. And well, here we are 7 years down the line, and I've been able to achieve it. Now, of course, the journey took a lot longer than 7 years, but that's just the time that I've been here in Mexico. So, in a sense, that's kind of like when this journey began. All right, but in order for me to even start this journey out here in Mexico, I had to go through a lot of things in the USA, in order for me to even make it out here. And again, I don't want to keep boring you guys, with the same old story over and over again. I know a lot of you guys have already heard it multiple times. And if you haven't, if you haven't heard my story, please, you guys can go in and check out my other channel. All right. In fact, a little shameless plug real quick. You guys can go check out my other channel, Jose Unleashed. We go live on that channel every single Thursday. As soon as I'm done here, I go live over there. And again, very recently I shared my story, how I ended up in Mexico. But again, I got a lot of stories. Again, how I got arrested in Texas for resisting arrest. And my life as a chef, and so on and so forth. You guys got to go dig a little deep, but you can find it out there. I got all kinds of stories and all kinds of cool and awesome content, to help, supplement, the content on this channel, to get a little bit more personal, with me, and my whole life story as to how I ended up here, and how my life, basically, became the life that I live right now. It was a journey and it took a long time, but long story short, I mean, you guys can always check that out on your own time, or just join me later today. Again, we're gonna be talking about, why does everything suck so much these days? And I think, in a weird way, a lot of it has to do with what we're talking about right now. A lot of people are looking into moving, all right, to Mexico because, well, everything just sucks. Everything's just terrible. You know what I mean? Back where you're at right now, and you're looking for a change. You want, again, a better life. And you see my life out here, through the YouTube screen. You might see other people's lives, doing something similar to what I'm doing. Perhaps, people living in Mexico or other parts of the world or whatever. Again, people just living their best life while you're stuck in the office, or you're stuck, doing a job that you hate, and you're just constantly wishing that for yourself. You want a better life for yourself. You want a better quality of life, and so on and so forth. But you don't even know where to start. You don't even know what to do to begin with. And for a lot of people out there in the audience, a lot of people just think that it's as simple as leaving the country, moving to another country, and all your problems are solved. But that's not, that's not even the beginning of it. That's just a tiny portion of it. Of course, a part of, having a better life is that you have to, first of all, deal with the current life that you're living at the moment. And for a lot of people, well, again, you're right now, you're stuck at some job because of a career that you might have picked, and you don't see any form of advancement. You don't see yourself quitting that job or career to then start brand new, let alone move to another country and do the insanity that I did. Again, I had my back up against the wall. For some of you guys that have a similar story to me, well, of course, you know that it's a lot easier in a weird way when you have nothing to lose. But when you have a lot to lose, or you built a lot, or you done a lot, it's a lot more difficult to just give all that up and start from scratch. And so that's just the reality of it. So a lot of people might have the whole idea and the dream, of wanting to move out to paradise, to move out to get out of Dodge, get out of the horrible situation that you might be in, living where you're at. But it's a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and so for a lot of people, the reality is that once they start tackling all those things that they have to do in order to really again, start just doing some note taking. You start taking notes as to the things that you need to do in order to get from point A to point B. That alone, just the fact that you have to do all of these things in order to just get to the other side. That alone is enough to discourage a lot of you guys, and for you guys to just keep putting your head down, going back to work, and just dealing with it, and just hoping that you survive long enough to get to retirement. So then maybe then at that point you can perhaps do and live the life that you've always wanted to live. It's just a fact. So it's a lot more difficult, for a lot of people than meets the eye. It's just the true, the true reality of it. So we got a bunch of people in the chat going off right now. We got Sturgis Bike Life says, "What happens in Mexico stays in Mexico." Well, I guess it just depends. Because what happens to me in Mexico, I put it on YouTube, and well, it doesn't stay in Mexico. Now it's worldwide public knowledge. So I guess it just depends on who you are. So I came out here with a lot more than 1,500 pesos. 1,500 pesos is only about $75. All right, I came out here with 1,500 left to my name, but whatever. That's not neither here nor there. But yeah, anyways, but that's the thing. For most people out there, the reality is that it's just the same old thing every single day, and you don't see any kind of light at the end of the tunnel, and it just gets worse and worse each and every day. And Sturgis Bike Life says, "America, what are you talking about? America is also Mexico." Oh, okay, we got one of those guys out there. See, Sturgis Bike Life might be one of those guys that is all about the Gulf of America, right? Since we're all American. No, but look, in all reality, all right? The situation is that, that lifestyle, we've talked about it before, the American dream, that whole dream of, just working, very hard, and then eventually attaining, those things that you never had before. That whole American dream might be dead in the USA. It might be dead in other parts of, the first world, again, Canada, Europe, whatever, but it's not dead out here in Mexico just yet. And so that's just the reality of it. You know what I mean? Like, so, of course, living in Mexico is not perfect. And those are the things that a lot of people just don't understand. A lot of people think that, hey, I'm going to come to Mexico. It's going to solve all my problems. Nobody in Mexico has any problems. I got nothing to worry about, yada, yada, yada. But the reality is that it couldn't be any further from the truth. The thing is that, all right, hold on a second, man. We got, you know what? Hold on. Let me see if I can, hold on, because I got like a little, hold on, because I got like a new setup over here, on my screens, trying to make things a little better. But now I got some things that are lost or whatever. So, the reality is, so we got like, it seems like we have a troll in the chat. But again, I love my trolls because they bring up a lot of good points. Sturgis Bike Life out there. He's always trolling about. But yeah, look, the reality is that, of course, there's, problems, here in Mexico. Nothing's perfect. And so for people like Sturgis Bike Life, he loves to live in the USA. In fact, he loves to live in the USA so much, he goes into, again, channels like mine that is talking about living in Mexico, right? Trying to convince everybody in the chat, probably convincing himself as well, that his life or life in the USA is still a lot better. But again, if it's so good, why do you need to come into, a random chat, a random video, a random live stream, or a random channel like mine, to talk about how life is so much better in the USA. Look, the reality is that again, it really boils down to the individual. For some people out there, I've talked about it before. I got friends, I got family, I got tons of people that I know that love the USA, that love living that American lifestyle, that love being the hamster on the hamster wheel. They just love that. They look at me, on a regular Tuesday afternoon at the beach, and they think I'm a bum. I got no life or no future. And I look at them, and then I say I say the opposite. You know what I mean? Meaning that I'm the one that's living my life. Look at me. I'm on the beach. I'm here having fun. I got my talking horse. I mean, I don't know what else you want, right? I got tacos. I got a beautiful wife. I mean, come on. And then they look at me like I'm the loser. I'm the one that's not. Living my best life and so on and so forth. So again, I always find it hilarious, and I totally enjoy it. And Sturgis says, I come here to help white folks understand the honest truth about Mexico. Yeah. No, no, no. Sturgis did not vote for Biden. 1000% he did not vote for Biden. All right. We know exactly who he voted for, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, we welcome everybody. And, to me, look, this is the point. You know what I mean? The point is that again, is living in Mexico worth it? So for someone like Sturgis, Bike Life, and other individuals out there, no, it is not worth it, because just the idea of moving to another country, all of a sudden now you got to assimilate to another country. You got to learn another language. You got to, now start, again, enjoying the customs and the culture of another country. You're gonna have to now be forced, to eat things like tacos and Mexican food, and have to deal, with such things as loud parties and festivals, and and all kinds of things. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. You know what I mean? The reality is that, all right, you know what? I'm gonna put Sturgis in a little timeout, because at this point, see, he cannot handle the heat, and so now he's just going on ahead and start to which McCullough starts to insult people, So again, just like the typical person back in the USA, that is very, very unsatisfied with life and very sad. You know what I mean? It's just the truth. Again, this is why I'm doing my other video today. Talking about why does everything suck so much in the USA, or just suck so much in life these days. The reason I'm even going to be talking about that on my other channel later is because of something that happened to us while, me and Christian, while we were shopping yesterday at the grocery store. But the reality is that, in the USA these days, you know it, for a lot of you guys out there, you love living in the USA. You got no problems living in the USA, but you have a lot of people out there, similar to Sturgis, it doesn't matter what political side they're on or whatever it is, but they're just very negative Nancy's all the time, constantly, being a Karen, constantly, creating conflict, constantly, creating a bad environment, for anyone out there, because again, they are so miserable in their own life. So the best way to for them to deal with that is to try to make other people's life miserable. And so out here in Mexico, it's very rare to encounter that. Of course you encounter that, just like anywhere else in the world, you're going to find that, but it's very, very rare compared to what you encounter in the USA these days. In the USA, it's like, I mean, come on, you know what I mean? You can't even shop at Walmart without getting pestered, by a Walmart employee, because they think that you might be shoplifting or whatever it is, and it's like, hey, I'm just, and, all you're in Walmart for is just to, buy some grapes and some paper cups, for your kids' project in school the next day, and yet, you know what I mean, all the things that you got to deal with, all right, again. First of all, you got to leave the house. As you're leaving the house and you're driving to Walmart, you got to encounter, some dude out there with a bad attitude. Whether it's Sturgis on his bike, on his tricycle out there, because that whole Sturgis thing, in case you guys don't know what that is, it's like a big gathering of bikers and stuff like that. But we know that Senor Sturgis out there is probably on his tricycle. And so anyways, all I'm saying is that you got to encounter some dude out there with a bad attitude, whether it's someone like him or some Karen out there, that has had one too many happy pills, or a cop out there trying to exercise his rights on your face. Whatever it is, there's always something. So it's like just getting to Walmart alone is an adventure. You might even get shot, on the way over there by some random bullet. Who knows? And then when you get to Walmart, well, you got to find parking. While you're in the parking lot, you got to deal with who God knows what in the parking lot. Then you got to enter Walmart and you got to deal with everything at the Walmart. Then you're gonna go pay, and all of a sudden there's like 100,000 people there to pay, and there's only one register open. And I mean, come on, what I mean? It's just one thing after the other. It just basically drives you crazy. And so imagine, that's just like part of your day. You know what I mean? That's not including when you got to go to work. That's not including, when you're taking your kids to school and now you got to deal with the PTA and the things that they're trying to teach them or not teach them, whatever. For a lot of people, again, these days, even if you're making over $100,000 a year, it's still not enough. Some of you guys, own your house. And for those that own your house, you quickly find out that you got to start paying, well, not start paying. You mean you've been paying, property taxes, and you own the house. But again, you pay off your house and you realize, oh, wait a minute, now my property taxes are just as much as my mortgage, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, there's always one thing after the other. Hold on a sec. Hold on. I'm just gonna deal with this real quick. Hold on. I don't got time for troll action today. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, man. No, but anyways, but yeah, man, it's just so funny, man. You know, back in the day, when my channel was a lot smaller than what it is today. I used to entertain trolls a little bit more. I used to, again, welcome the trolls a lot more. But these days, when I got so many viewers, so many people watching, I'm sorry. I mean, like, I'm not one of those guys that likes to censor things or censor people. You guys know, you guys see all the comments and see how I respond to people and all that stuff. But sometimes it is counterintuitive, and we don't, no need for any of that right now. All right. But yeah, look, long story short, I mean, like, it is hilarious, to see how many people get so mad, at the videos that I post on my channel, because it's in a weird way. It's like, again, like a couple weeks ago or a week ago. I don't know when I posted it because I post so many videos, but I posted a video, I think it was last week, talking about how Mexico is not a third world country. Basically, again, just trying to show you guys that, hey, look, we got Home Depot, we got Walmart, we got Office Max, we got Petco, we got, the Hyundai dealership, we got Costco, we got Walmart, we got everything. In fact, we sometimes, in many cases, we even have more than what you guys have in the USA these days. And yet people get mad at that stuff, because it's like, how dare I show you guys that you can, again, have everything that you have back in the USA here. All those luxuries, all those amenities that you think you're not going to have out here, you have them out here. Like I said, I got Wendy's, I got Pizza Hut, I got the only thing that we don't have is Taco Bell for obvious reasons. But other than that, we got everything. And it is hilarious to see how so many people out there get so angry when I tell people what things are out here at all. You know what I mean? Like when I show people what things are out here. So, oh my gosh, man, this guy, see, look, you can tell when there's somebody, by the way, I learned this a long time ago. Your biggest fans, so in my case, again, obviously I got, I'm doing YouTube channel, and I'm a public figure in a weird way, and I got fans, right? But anyways, your biggest fans are your biggest haters, so we got that at Sturgis, out there with like 16 accounts, coming in here trying to, poo poo on my parade or whatever, or on our parade, because again, this is our channel here. But yeah, I mean, it is hilarious though. It is so hilarious, to see people, coming in here and all they try to do, again, not just here, but in your own personal life, just going in there and just poo-pooing on your own life, poo-pooing on anything that you might want to do, such as, again, moving to Mexico. So, one of the more difficult things, believe it or not, when moving to Mexico, is dealing with your own friends and family. A lot of your friends and family, they just think you're crazy. They just will never understand why you're even thinking about moving to another country, let alone moving to Mexico. And then obviously if you're out there and you show them videos, hey, look at this guy Jose, look, he just walked around this area where they have like 13 malls, they got all these amenities. In fact, wow, it looks nicer than where we're living here in the USA. They get mad, they get upset, when you move out to another country and you're living your best life. They get upset, they get mad, because the reality is that, look, it's the same kind of mentality that happens to a lot of people out there. Like, for example, there's been a bunch of famous actors or famous singers out there. I want to say Adele. I think, I don't know. I don't really follow all that too much, but remember Adele, was one of those chubby women, chubby persons. Okay, and long story short, she lost weight and she started getting a lot of hate because of that. And this is nothing new. Okay, it has nothing to do with the way that the political spectrum is these days or anything like that. No, the reality is, look, I used to weigh 280 pounds. By the way, I weighed myself the other day. I'm at 205. All right, I got my, I went to one of those little things where you put a few quarters and then weighs you and gives you your height and all that stuff. And anyways, long story short, so I mean, I've lost a lot of weight. Okay, and in the course of over 10 years of me working at it, and yet I get a lot of hate from people that have known me a long time. I get from people that have known me back when I was 280 pounds. Again, they hate the fact that not only have I been able to lose the weight, but I've been able to maintain the loss of weight and try to, and in a sense, maintain a healthier lifestyle. Not just the weight, but many other aspects of my life. One of those things was when I moved to Mexico, because believe it or not, when I came out to Mexico, I was, I had lost everything. I, not just lost hope, but I lost everything. I had no money, no nothing, nothing, and I was left for dead. All right, for lack of a better description. And I came out to Mexico in order to survive. And not only did I survive, I thrived. All right. And for a lot of people, back when I was barely surviving, they loved the fact that I was, barely surviving, but as I've, not just survived, but thrived and grown and, have provided a better life for myself, my family, the people that, have been around my growth, throughout this whole time. Outside of those people, a lot of people that have saw me all the way at the, at the bottom of the barrel, they just cannot stand. They hate the fact that, again, I have been able to make a better life for myself, and not just make a better life for myself, but live an amazing life, for myself. And so that's just the true reality of it. So, um, oh, we got Jeremy and oh, whatever, I mean, but by the way, is Pedro in the chat? Where's Pedro? Did Pedro leave? Um, anyways, but yeah, see, look, I mean, it's funny. Pedro, yeah, he's on a mission, right? That guy. So anyway, so like the troll with like the 17 accounts, has nothing better to say. So for example, the person in the chat is basically saying this guy is sweating. I'm not sweating, by the way. I got my air conditioner on because he doesn't have electricity. He has to get a generator in order to get power. Okay, sure. Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I guess, you know what I mean? If you want to believe that. And look, that's the thing. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, it's, I, I don't ever try to convince anybody about, moving to Mexico or living out here or anything like that. You guys make your own decisions. You guys are all adults, correct? Even though you might not know how to, some of you guys might not know how to act like an adult. I get it. I'm a big kid myself. But that's the thing, you know what I mean? Like, it's just how how people out there, just try to, convince themselves, convince others, again, living in that weird um mindset of I'm gonna just crap on everybody's parade, just for no reason. So I mean, it is hilarious. I really, it really, really is funny, to see all of these people out there that I see all the time. In fact, where I see the most amount of hate is usually on Facebook. Okay. But that's the thing, at least for me, this is another reason I love living out here in Mexico, because of the fact that, I don't have to deal with these people on a regular basis. I just deal with them here in a chat, in a live stream, or in a comment, whether they might leave a comment. All right. So, um, look at this, yeah. So anyways, I mean, to me, it's just hilarious. You know what I mean? I don't like giving too much attention to the trolls, but hey, this troll is pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. So, you know, it is what it is. All right. Let's just keep going. Keep going with the show. But the reality is that when it comes to moving to Mexico, like for example, I think a lot of you guys in the chat just trying to get away from people like Jenny or whatever. For you guys, it's totally worth it. You know what I mean? In order to move out here because you're getting away from people like that, that are just constantly just harassing you just for free, while you're living up in the USA. D-Mouse says, I don't get worked up. I donate. Thank you very much. And muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, D-Mouse. Much appreciated for the $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. By the way, while I got all of you guys here, I gotta make a quick announcement, all right? Because I even made a note to myself, all right? Note to self, all right? Because I knew I was gonna forget. Look, this Sunday, I got a special video, okay? For you guys, all right? Now, the video is 100% completely in Spanish. All right, just please understand that. All right, the video is completely in Spanish. In fact, what I'm gonna do real quick, let me show you how you can switch it to English. All right, because I know for a lot of you guys. Hold on a second. Hold on. Where's my? Oh yeah. 1 second. Because I know for a lot of you guys still don't know how to do that. So let me just do that real quick. All right. So look, we'll do it here with my last video, so you guys can see exactly how it's done. Hold on a second. Okay. So as you guys can see there on the video, here, let me get rid of my face for a second. So as you guys can see there on the video, okay, this is just the last video that I published, all right? Down below here, right there where it says settings, all right, you see a little HD, little red thing right there, okay? You click on settings, okay? And when you click on settings, you see audio track, all right? So you got to change the audio track to English, all right? Because you got all these languages, all right? So because the video that I'm going to publish on Sunday, and I'm going to be publishing a lot of videos like this, okay, going forward, all right? They're going to be in Spanish. Again, I'm still doing my English content, all right? So please, don't get scared there. But just FYI, all right, going forward, all right, I am going to be publishing videos in Spanish, and when I do publish them in Spanish, and it might come out in Spanish, meaning you click on the video and I'm speaking in Spanish and everything's in Spanish, do not freak out. All you got to do is just click on the settings and just change the audio track to English, and now the video will be in English, all right? And you can also have subtitles in English and so on and so forth, all right? So again, this Sunday, I get a Spanish only video, all right, that I think a lot of you guys are going to enjoy. So please, check that out. And again, for some of you guys that want to practice your Spanish, this is great, because you might be able to hear the video in Spanish and then get the English subtitles, or perhaps get the Spanish subtitles and then get the Spanish, I'm sorry, the English speaking, so the English dubbed, so you'll hear everything in English and then get Spanish subtitles, whatever, right? So just FYI, for this video coming up, all right, so you can expect that, and expect that with other videos, okay, going forward. I just want to let you guys know, all right? So you guys don't freak out too much this Sunday, all right? But anyway, so this Sunday, I got a really cool special video, and I hope you guys will enjoy it, and so on and so forth. But anyways, what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. D-Mouse says, that will be good for learning Spanish. Is Yucatecan Spanish different? Yes, the Yucatecan Spanish is very different. I mean, look, the way I like to describe the different versions of Spanish is that, look, in the United States we speak American English, a certain kind of English, but it depends on what part of the USA you're in, will depend on the accent. So again, if you're in New York, we got the New York accent out there, if you're in New Jersey, you got a different accent in New Jersey. But anyways, similar accent in the East Coast. If you go all the way to California, you got a special accent. If you go down to New Orleans, you got an accent. If you go down to Miami, Florida, you got my accent, and so on and so forth. So there's all kinds of different accents. And, sometimes you might go to New Orleans and you don't even know what the hell they're talking. You don't even know if it's even English, right? Same thing as in New York, right? Hey, hey, hey. Anyway, so it all depends. So the same thing in Mexico. All right. In Mexico, the people in Guadalajara are going to speak very different than the people in the Yucatan, and the people in Veracruz, and the people in Mexico City, and so on and so forth. All right. So there's a big difference. Again, depending on where you're at, depending on how big the difference is. Out here in the Yucatan, similar to, like, let's say New Orleans, there's a mix of Mayan, and there's a mix of other Spanish words. Again, there's a Cuban and Caribbean influence out here. So the Spanish, that for me, it was a lot easier to pick up the Spanish in the Yucatan because, well, I'm Cuban and I got the Caribbean Spanish. All right. But in the end of the when it comes to, like, trying to understand somebody from Mexico City, for example, it's a little bit more difficult for me because I don't understand that kind of Mexican. But again, at this point, I've been here over 7 years, and I've been able to understand the different kind of Spanish that is spoken out here in Mexico. Now, with that said, the Spanish also differs greatly depending on what country you're in Latin America. The Cubans speak very differently than the people in Argentina, and then the same, speak very differently than the ones in El Salvador and in Guatemala and in Mexico and in Dominican Republic, and I can go on and on. So it's the same thing with English. If you understand English, you can understand an Indian from India speaking English, or somebody from down under, speaking English. Or again, the hardest English for us to understand is someone coming from, teas and crumpets, over there in the UK. All right. Shout out to all my viewers over there in the UK. All right, I know I got a lot of viewers out there. Shout out to you. But you understand, at the end of the day, it's the same thing kind of with Spanish. And for a lot of people, believe it or not, that speak Spanish, the most difficult Spanish to understand is the Spanish that they speak in Spain, because it's very similar to, like, the English that they speak in England. It's like the mother country, the mother tongue, and then from there, the Spanish, aka, or the English, whatever, as it made its way to the Americas, believe it or not, it was a lot easier to understand. For a lot of people that are learning English, for example, they tend to learn American English because American English is the easiest, basically to understand, and then to basically decipher, other Englishes is spoken around the world. And so it's kind of like very similar with Spanish. If you're going to learn Spanish, try to learn Latin American Spanish, because if you learn Spanish from Spain, believe it or not, if you learn Spanish from Spain, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to understand Spanish in other parts of the world that speak Spanish, as opposed to if you learn Latin American Spanish, or Spanish spoken in the Americas, America and the USA, whatever. It's going to be a lot easier for you to understand the different kind of dialects and different words and expressions and the different kinds of Spanish throughout Latin America. So just FYI, when you're learning Spanish, don't go with Spanish from Spain, because that's, again, like learning English, but you're learning English from England, and then you end up in New York City. Like, wait a minute, what the hell? Are you guys even speaking the same language? So, Teresa Ocampo says, am I showing the beaches in Progreso? No, this is not Progreso. Great question. So right now in today's video, we're actually walking around, whatchamacallit? We're walking around Telchac, Puerto San Cristobal, over there. I don't know the exact area, because we were staying with some friends in their beach house, and it's in that area there. So somewhere around the Telchac, Puerto area. So that's where you're watching this video here, okay? So, but yeah, that's just the reality of it. You know what I mean? Like, the thing is that, is moving to Mexico worth it? Well, yes. You know what I mean? As the US, for example, if you're coming from the USA, from Canada, from Europe, and where you're living at the moment is just getting more and more toxic each and every single day out there, well then yeah, of course it's worth it to you to move to Mexico, because for you might be looking for, again, that freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of living your life, freedom from away from all these people and so on and so forth. So for a lot of people, is definitely still worth it, just trying to get away from the toxic environment. Because look, it's not to say that Mexico doesn't have toxic people and doesn't have certain environments or certain areas where there's going to be people that you might not agree with or what have you. But the reality is that for the most part, most people in Mexico are a lot easier to get along with and a lot easier to talk to, and so on and so forth. You're gonna have random people say hi to you, want to have a conversation with you, and so on and so forth. For me, I remember when I first moved to Mexico, that was one of the things that was a little difficult for me to assimilate to, was the fact that how everyone was really nice to you. Because where I come from in the USA, nobody asks you how you're doing, hey, what's your name? Hey, how's it going? My name is Umberto, whatever it is, like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I live over here, or I work over there. What, just the kindness, all right, that a lot of people just have out here. That's not something that I was used to. So I remember when people would just, randomly strike up a conversation, or randomly, want to say hi to me or whatever it is. I was always in defensive mode. I was always on the defensive, because I was like, why is this guy saying hi to me? Why is this guy so friendly to me? Why is this guy, approaching me, blah, 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 not knowing that people are just nice out here. Because again, growing up in the USA, I realized very quick, again, growing up in the USA, I realized, after being out there, that, well, you really, it was really hard to really have a conversation with people, because someone's always trying to scam you, steal something from you, take something from you, whatever it is. It's always, they're always trying to get something out of you, and it's never just a nice and pleasant conversation. On top of that, most people in the USA, we're stressed out. We're so stressed out just trying to get, through the day, through life, that you don't have time to even have a conversation with a stranger. All right. But I mean, that's just the reality is, you know, um, man, this guy has like seven. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like when I was earlier saying like that Sturgis dude has like um, you know, like 17 accounts. I was just being extra. You know what I mean? But now after seeing all 17 of his accounts, this guy really does have 17 accounts out there. So hey, it is what it is. Shout out to Border Patrol, right, or whatever. So that's the thing. I mean, at least in my opinion, it's always going to be worth it, at least for the time being, to move to Mexico, because there's a lot of you know there's a lot of stuff that Mexico has. A lot of just life. It's hard to explain after you've been, I've been living here for so long, but it's just a way of life. That's what I was trying to say. Just a way of life out here in Mexico is so different to the way of life in the USA, and especially these days, when it comes to just how people get along. Just the fact that how people get along is is pretty crazy. Just for that alone. Again, the peace of mind of not having to deal with, again, crazy people all day, every day. Because look, that guy Sturgis, the troll in the chat. Again, as we were talking about earlier, you guys out there living in the USA or Canada or Europe, you encounter these people every day, all day, every day. You know what I mean? They're just everywhere. And it is a shame, because it starts to really make you think, hey, what's going on out here? Especially when you visit another country. Once you visit another country and you find the fact that you don't see those kind of people around, or very rarely do you find these people, that's when you really starts, it starts to really hit you as to, hey, wait a minute, you know what I mean? Living in the USA is making me crazy. Everyone in the USA or everyone back home is in a way, kind of going crazy, because it's like, for a lot of people out there, it's just, a constant lying to themselves that, again, they're living in the best country in the world. that things cannot get any better, when all of a sudden paradigm is uh, um, that paradigm is, how do I say this, like, taken away, that whole idea taken away, as to, again, when when people see videos like mine and they realize, oh, wait a minute, there is a better life out there. There is, a way to escape, the matrix, or a way to escape, this horrible situation. For a lot of people, they just cannot handle that. And, going back to what I was saying earlier about the losing of the weight and how people, get upset with you, or they get negative with you. That goes for anything. It doesn't matter what you do with your life. If you try to better yourself, or you try to better your life, you automatically start to see a lot of people are very negative towards that change. Because what happens is that when you make a positive change in your life, it forces others around you to look at themselves, okay, with their own problems, and it makes them, again, and it makes them, how do I say this, confront their own demons, their own problems, their own situation, and they cannot handle that, because what that means is that, if, again, for most people out there that are unhappy with their situation, with their life, with their whatever, most people know this by now, okay? Most adults know this, that in order for the change to happen, it has to come from within. It has to come from you. So, and all of a sudden, you lose weight, and you talk to your other fat friends. Well, now you're the problem, because, well, now you're forcing them to look at themselves, because before, you guys were all fat together, and now you're not fat anymore. So now, what is, what is my problem that I'm still fat? You know what I mean? I don't want to be fat, but I thought that we were all fat together in solidarity here, suffering together, with our problem. So how dare you, make your life better? And so, like, the same thing, if all of a sudden you're moving to Mexico, and your reasons for moving to Mexico or moving to another country, just leaving, your toxic relationship, is like, hey, I want better for me and my family. I don't want to deal with the toxicity of what this environment brings me anymore. That alone is enough to cause people that, were once your friends or family or loved you or whatever, to hate you, simply because it makes them look at themselves and be like, oh, wait a minute, am I part of that toxic environment? Am I part of the problem? Am I part? No, of course not. I can't be part of the problem. It must be this guy, the guy that's moving away. Of course, he's the problem. He's the one that's crazy. He's the one that's, whatever. That's why he's moving away. Of course, he cannot, of course he's moving away to another country, or this person's moving away to another country, because they cannot handle it here. This is too rough for them, too difficult for them, too whatever it is, right? And so, again, it's just that lying to oneself that a lot of people just constantly do all the time, no matter what it is, no matter what problem they have, no matter what situation they're in. And for most people, they just do not, want to, again, look at themselves and fix the problem that they have themselves. They would rather, again, be in misery with other people. So, like, the whole idea of, like, misery loves company. So, again, the reality is that, is moving to Mexico worth it? Yeah, of course it's worth it. You know what I mean? Because we have everything out here that you wish you had in your home country. The reality is that, for a lot of you guys out there in the audience, the biggest barrier to entry is Spanish. All right. And, think about it. How many immigrants, travel to the USA, travel to Canada, whatever, right? To start a brand new life, to start a brand new everything. And when they get there, they have to learn English. They have to learn a new language, and they have to learn and assimilate to the culture, to everything. So what makes you think that you don't have to do that as well? And so that's one of the realities that hits a lot of people, is the fact that, when you're finally moving, to another country, okay, that you, all of a sudden, now you're the immigrant. You got to learn another language. You're going to start off at the bottom rung. Now you get what I'm saying. All these things that a lot of people just don't want to deal with. They want to keep riding high on their tricycle. All right. And they don't want to be worrying about, having to now be an immigrant, or dealing with, the fact that, again, at least in the USA, some people, or in Canada, you're still the top dog because, well, that's your home country. But now once you move away, well, then now you got to, again, deal with, all the problems that come with being an immigrant. And so, for example, when people ask me, "Oh, can I find a job in Mexico?" Oh yeah, there's tons of jobs in Mexico. There are jobs that you can apply for and work. You can start your own business. You can be a digital nomad. You can do all this stuff. And then, a lot of people, once, and I got videos, I got all kinds of information on that. So a lot of people, I'll give them this information, and they're very, very happy, with that information. And so then they just go on ahead and use that information in order to go on ahead and find their job, find their income so that they can move to Mexico. But for a lot of people out there, they're like, oh, but wait a minute, if I go to Mexico and I get a job at Walmart, I can't live off of $500 a month. Well, then don't get a job at Walmart. Learn, some sort of skill, learn something, figure out a way in which you can make more money online, make more money, perhaps working online. Oh, but I don't know how to work online. I don't know how to do that. Okay, so you don't want to get a traditional job in Mexico because it pays too little. You got absolutely no skills and no nothing to add, you're saying no skills or skill sets, you know what I mean, to get yourself a better job out here. Okay, great. You also don't want to work online. You also don't want to do this. You also don't want to do, I mean, so what do you want to do? You just want to come out here and just what, what I mean, have the money rain on you from the skies. What, you're gonna plant a money tree and just pick off the dollars from the tree. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing. It's like the reality is that for many people out there, the reality is that in the USA these days, especially in the USA, a lot of people have unfortunately been embedded so deep into the system. So, for example, for a lot of people on the lower end of the income scale, well, they get money from EBT, food stamps. They might get money from the government, cash money. They might be on unemployment. They might be on disability. They might be on all these benefits, right? And so all of a sudden now, and they don't work, or they have a very minimal type side hustle or work in the USA, and now all of a sudden they want to move to Mexico because, of course, living in poverty in the USA, or living in poverty anywhere, kind of sucks. But again, living in poverty in the USA sucks, and you want to come to Mexico, but then all of a sudden you're unwilling to even get a job. It's all these little things like that. I mean, for me, again, I had my own job. I had my own way of making money before I ever moved out here. So, of course, it was difficult. It was extremely difficult, to do everything I had to do to get from point A to point B. But I did it, okay? Because for me, at least in my mindset, it would have been even more difficult to do it in the USA. And so it's a thing. It's like, what is it that you really value? What is it that you really want? Do you want freedom? Or do you just want pure comfort? Do you want to be, a lazy bum, or do you actually want to do something with your life? And so it's all these little things that you gotta, take into consideration. Like I've told you guys before many times, I know plenty of people that have moved out to moved out to Mexico, not because, they want that freedom, not because they love the culture or the food or anything like that. No, a lot of times it's like they're moving because, hey, they got a better job opportunity working for a company out here, and it's going to provide a better future for them and their family. And once they get out here, they realize, oh my God, life is much better out here. Some people move out here because they might have a sick child, or a sick wife or husband. And, the only way that they can afford their medicine is being out here. A lot of people out there just want a higher quality of life. It's not about the money. They just want to live like me. I just need to make a certain amount of money to pay my bills, and the rest of the time I want to be able to enjoy my life. And that's the thing. And so, like, there's many, many different reasons, as to why, people consider, leaving the USA, Canada, whatever, and moving to Mexico or another country out there. And it's not just a one size fits all. But again, is it actually worth it? Again, the question I ask everybody is, first of all, why are you leaving the USA? And do you see that situation in the USA, Canada, whatever, the reason you're leaving, do you see that reason getting better or getting worse. And for many of you guys, you already know that the political situation is getting worse. Your income situation is getting worse. Raising your family getting worse. Everything, no matter what, um, all these things that we all use to measure our quality of life or the reasons for even staying in the USA, Canada, whatever, each and every day, all those, they keep diminishing and getting worse. And for many people these days, it's like, the real question is not, is it worth it to move to Mexico? The real question that a lot of you guys have is it still worth it to live in the USA? Is it still worth it to live in Canada? Is it still worth it to live in, the first world, whatever? Well, again, and that's why I make all the videos that I make on my channel. Again, I was very recently just showing you how first world Mexico is. In fact, in many cases, it's more first world out here than it is in the USA. I mean, for example, let's say that you're going to do a bank transfer. Whenever anyone had to do any kind of bank, all of you guys doing any kind of bank transfer in the USA, most of the time it takes a long time to get your money from point A to point B. There's fees involved, there's all this stuff involved, and so on and so forth. And my friend, very recently, he had to pay, some service for one of his businesses, right? And they asked for payment up front, like a deposit, and he's like, okay, no problem. And then when he was going to go pay, they basically told him, oh, you got to pay a $75 charge just to use your Visa card. It's like, what the hell? What are you talking about? So I mean, it's like, it's just one thing after the other. It's just there's never any respite, from the situation. All right, hold on a sec, because I see someone ask me a question. We got Edwin Moncado, right? That's it. Yeah, Edwin Moncado, shout out to you with the $5 super chat. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. I need all the super chats I can get, because again, as the trolls were saying in the chat, I can't even afford electricity. So thank you, appreciate it. Hopefully I can get some electricity sometime out here, so that I can do live streams. Wait, what? Anyways, all right. Anyway, shout out to Edwin. Edwin says, thank you always for giving us such valuable information. I hope I can talk to my wife into moving to Merida. I'm tired of life here in America. Hey, man, I totally get it. For a lot of people, that's also a very difficult aspect of it, is having to deal with your spouse or your other family members, and convincing them that there is a better life out there, that there are brighter horizons out there, that there is light at the end of the tunnel out there for you guys. But the thing is that, look, the reality is that no one's ever going to get anything that they want without any kind of hard work put into it. And moving to Mexico is not going to be easy, because for most of you guys out there, you're going to have to, it depends on your situation with employment. You might have to get a brand new job, or you might have to transfer departments, or you might have to, transfer to like the Mexico entity. You might have to take less money, whatever it is. And for a lot of you guys, that alone is enough to, again, just not do it. Some of you guys have to all of a sudden now reinvent yourself, start a new career, a new job, a new something. And for a lot of people, the whole idea of moving to Mexico, moving abroad, might seem like a great idea at first. But then when, again, as you're looking into what you actually have to do it, most people just, they chicken out. It's too much for them. And they never get to realize that dream, because they're like, well, wait a minute, how am I going to, get some income? How am I going to get a new job? How am I going to learn Spanish? How am I going to assimilate? How am I going to this? How am I going to that? How am I? And it's like, I mean, come on, how many immigrants come into the USA, Canada every single day? Yeah, they're still coming in, believe it or not. But anyways, how many immigrants come into these countries every single day? Even Mexico, how many immigrants come into here? And they're not asking all these questions. They don't have anything to go home to. They don't have anything to go home back to. And so all of a sudden they have to make do. They have to learn on their feet. They have to learn on the fly, learn the language, learn the customs, learn to take abuse, because again, for some people that are lower level immigrants, and they have to get a regular traditional job, or you're probably going to get, abused by your employer, and so on and so forth. I mean, again, I'm just talking about low level immigrants, not most of you guys in the audience probably don't have to deal with anything like this, but it's just the true reality of the situation. And for many people, this is why, I talk so much about why it's so difficult to leave, your home country, because what happens is that in order for you to really get what you want, you got to learn to become uncomfortable. And you're not going to be able to get the real comfort that you have, because look, right now I'm the most comfortable I've ever been in my life. But in order for me to get to this comfort level, I had to sacrifice a lot. I had to suffer a lot. I had to go through a lot. Okay. I had to reinvent myself. I had to be reborn. I had to, again, move to another country, sight unseen. And I had to restart everything from the ground up. All right. And rebuild everything, from the ground up. And it wasn't easy. But again, I really didn't have much other choice. I didn't have anywhere else to go to. But when I did have some, like, a backup plan, when I did have a safety net, when again, I still had options in the USA or whatever it was, well, I never left. I never wanted to leave. I wanted to keep, riding it out to see how far it was going to take me. Because the comfort, okay, the fake comfort, okay, that how do I say this? Yeah, the comfort that the USA provides us, the fake safety, okay, the fake what's a word I'm looking for here? Man, it's the comfort that is provided to you by the government. What's it called again? The Anyways, look, the point I'm making is that they make it so comfortable for you to stay in your shit job, in your crappy life, and deal with all the insanity that you're dealing with over there. That again, just the whole idea, just the whole thought of losing those comforts, okay, in order to restart somewhere else with the hopes and the prayers that hopefully, maybe, if you reinvent yourself and start over in another country, that you're going to be able to eliminate a lot of those things that are, bothering you about your home country. And so, like, for a lot of people, it's just not worth it. For a lot of people, it's just they become more, curmudgeon. You become meaner. You become more disillusioned. You become, more like that Sturgis dude or whatever it is, and eventually it just eats at you alive, because, again, even though you know that there's an option out there for you, even though you know that there is a way out, you don't choose the way out. Again, you got the red pill and the blue pill. I forgot what pill does what, but for a lot of people, just like the whole thing with the Matrix, a lot of people don't want to be Neo. A lot of you guys out there do not want to fight the Matrix. A lot of you guys out there, all you want is to be like that other dude, the guy that wanted to eat the steak. He just wanted to live in the Matrix. He didn't want to fight the Matrix. And so that's the thing. And so, out here, believe it or not, living this kind of life, moving out to another country and basically disconnecting from everything going on in the USA, Canada, whatever, that's, part of escaping the matrix that a lot of people just don't want to do. A lot of people, again, they move out here and they're constantly still living the same life that they would live in the USA or Canada. What do I mean by that? Again, it's they're constantly watching the news. They're constantly watching everything that's going on. They're involved in politics. They're involved in all these things. And it's like, bro, you don't even live there anymore. The main reason you wanted to leave was to get away from all that. And then you move to another country. And what do? You embed yourself into that yet again. For me, one of the saving graces, one of the things that I love so much about life out here is the fact that I don't have to know anything about what's going on in the USA at all, unless I want to. Now, again, I do like to keep, in myself informed as to what's going on in the USA or in other parts of the world, but not as much as I used to care as when I used to live in the USA. All right. And it was a process. It took many, many years of me living out here for me to, again, finally just get away from all that and not really care anymore about what's going on over there. Because the reality is that, the people that are still living in that environment, in that matrix, they don't want to be snapped out of the matrix. They don't want to, they want to continue living that life. And so think about it. When you finally make that decision for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, that, hey, I don't want to be in this toxic environment anymore. I don't want to be dealing with these government entities anymore the way that we all do. I don't want to be dealing with corrupt police. I don't want to be dealing with all these Karens. I don't want to be dealing with all of these things anymore. And I want a better life for myself. I want to do what Jose's doing, okay, which is walking on the beach on a regular, Thursday afternoon. Then all of a sudden, you're the crazy one because it's like, how dare you, go on ahead and leave us behind? How dare you go on and have a better life, for you out there and so on and so forth. Oh, we got Memo out there saying, "Did I hear the thunder?" Man, you heard the thunder? Did you guys hear the thunder? Yes, it's about to start raining really hard out here. Um, but yes, it's thundering out there right now. So yes, I don't know. Did you guys hear it? Okay. Memo. I guess Memo's in another part of Merida at the moment. Yeah, no, well, it's not raining here yet, but it's getting dark out there, and I can hear the thunder. So, um, but yeah, the thing is, yeah, the rain out here is very different than the rain in Portland, for example. I used to live in Seattle, and no way, I hated the kind of rain and weather from the Northwest. Just the constant dreariness and the constant, slow trickling rain that you get up there. I hated that. I much rather have the weather that we have here, where we got mostly blue skies all the time, and then every once in a while in the afternoon during the rainy season, we get the giant thunderstorms. I love that. But yeah, I was actually talking to Christian about this yesterday. Believe it or not, we were talking about the fact that this happens. It seems to be a particularly wet season this year. So there's been a lot of rain this year, which is good because the last several years we've been having kind of droughts out here. So it's actually really good that we're actually getting a lot of rain right now. So it's all good. I don't really hate the rain. I love the rain. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's really thundering now. I don't know if you guys have heard that one or not, but um, Jay Muncie says that he has been told by close friends that he is an asshole and that he needs to move out of there. Well, take that as a sign from God Himself. All right, take it as a blessing in disguise. All right, trust me. A lot of people thought it was a jerk off too. Okay, an asshole. Right. In fact, a lot of people probably still think that. All right, so it is what it is. No big deal. So, um, oh, okay. See, look, Kim loved the rain from the northwest. Jay Monty says, "Hola from Miami. Hola, how's it going? Shout out to you. Hope you're having fun out there in Miami these days, man. That's another thing too. So I left Miami. I want to say like 15 years ago, give or take. No, no, hold on. I left in 13 years ago, all right? Give or take. I let 12, 13 years ago, I left Miami, and I don't miss it one bit. Especially living out here in the Yucatan, I definitely don't miss it at all. But it's like I hear I got my family out there. I got friends out there still, and they tell me about how everything is in Miami these days, and it's like, yeah, man, I've been trying to warn you for over a decade. You got to get out of Miami. I've been trying to warn you that all these things were going to happen, and so on and so forth. And well, here we are now. I mean, I cannot even imagine surviving in Miami these days. Because again, it's like one of the highest cost of livings and one of the lowest wage states in the union. So no bueno. So, anyways, shout out to you, Jay Monsi. Good luck to you and all that stuff. But let me see. Let me read some chats out here. Let me read some comments. By the way, hopefully today was a good video. I apologize for having some some trolls in the chat kind of distracting me a little bit today. So I know I enjoy it. I know it's entertainment. I know you guys enjoy it too. But sometimes you know, I don't know how which we call how the video comes out because I don't watch my live streams again. I don't, I just go live, publish the video, move on with my day, so on and so forth. So anyway, shout out to everyone out there. If you have any, by the way, if you have any comments or questions you guys want to ask me last minute before we start wrapping this bad boy up, let me know. All right. But anyway, shout out to everyone out there. Man, it's about to, yeah, I think it's really gonna be raining hard today. I was actually gonna do I was thinking about doing some laundry earlier this morning. I'm like, you know what? I don't think it would be a good idea. I got a feeling it's gonna gonna be pouring rain, and sure enough, here it is, 1:30 in the afternoon. So it's 1:30 in the afternoon right now, 1:26 p.m. give or take. So right now, if you're on the East Coast, we are 2 hours behind East Coast time. But as soon as the time changes, then we are only going to be 1 hour behind, because in Mexico they stopped doing the daylight savings, so the time never changes anymore, unless you're living in certain areas of Mexico, like close to the border or what have you, and then the time does change with the time change. But for the most part, it doesn't. So it only changes when it changes for you guys. So really, it's just changing for you, not for me. Um, Memo says might take you up on a consultation on Monday. Well, again, for anyone out there that wants to set up a consultation with me, please, the best way to do so is go to my website and get all the information there. Reach out to me so that we can schedule, okay, a consultation, okay? So yeah, because I mean, I don't, I'm not just here waiting by my phone or waiting by my email, for people to just email me so I can immediately, okay, let's do the consultation right now. It just depends. And I think I might be busy Monday, not sure. Depends on how quickly you send me that, the request for a consultation. So, anyways, Jonathan says, what if I'm a Mexican citizen already? I speak Spanish. Will I have a hard time starting off in Mexico? No. I mean, well, first of all, everyone's going to have a hard time starting off in Mexico, simply because you're starting from scratch all over again, in another country. I mean, think about it. Right now, let's say that you are in Florida, all right, and you're moving to Washington State, or you're moving to New York, and you got to start all over again. Well, that's going to be difficult, isn't it? So it's the same thing. You're moving now to another country, so it's going to come with its difficulties. But with that said, if you're a citizen, okay, and you speak Spanish, when you're going to have a leg up on a lot of people. It's going to be a lot easier for you to get things done, because again, as a citizen, you can get a job immediately. You can get a bank account, sorry, immediately, and so on and so forth. All right, so Kat says, "What time is my show on Sunday?" I'm not sure yet. I mean, I'm trying. I'm going to try and publish my video on Sunday earlier than usual, because it is NFL Sunday. It is the first week of the NFL season, and so I know. With that said, I know a lot of people's attention goes towards football, like moi. All right, I'm going to be watching football all Sunday. In fact, I'm going to be watching football tonight. All right. So with that said, I'm going to try and publish the video earlier on Sunday. Several hours before NFL kickoff, so you guys can watch it, assuming you want to watch it before the games. But for anyone that doesn't watch football, well, you can watch it at your regularly scheduled time, and if not, you can just watch it later on in the day. Okay. Uh, but hopefully you guys enjoy that kind of video, and hopefully you guys won't laugh too hard. Listening to the AI English voice. By the way, Christian was outside. She's saying hi. She was getting, just getting the plants and all this other stuff ready, out of the rain before the storm hits. Um, but what was I going to say? So yes, I mean, it really just depends on your what was I? What was I saying? Oh yeah, I was talking about the. Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm gonna be making videos in Spanish, going forward. Again, I'm still doing my English videos, mostly English on the channel, but there are a lot of videos that I want to make, like interviewing Mexicans, talking to Mexicans, doing things in Spanish, like going to a village and being able to talk in Spanish. Um, and then being able to relay that to you. But then what happens is that when I make a video, and I want to use the new AI technology that helps transcribe the videos, I gotta pick what language I'm gonna do the video in. So, like for example, in the future, let's say that I go to a village, I might start doing those videos in Spanish only, so that I can talk to the people and then interact with the people. So that way, it's all Spanish. And then once I upload the video to YouTube, then YouTube will automatically transcribe it and what's the word I'm looking, translate it to English and other languages. So, in those videos, you're not going to hear my voice. You're going to hear the AI voice that YouTube chose for me, all right, and the other people. But you'll be able to watch the video in English or whatever language you choose, okay? And I explained how to do that earlier. But again, here I'll do it one more time, real quick, so you guys know exactly how to do it. So again, the how to do it is very easy. In fact, right here next to Lambo's eyes, okay, I'm gonna leave Lambo on screen for a second. So right there next to Lambo's eyes, right there, okay, there's a little settings. Okay, I'm gonna see right there. I'm gonna click on settings, and right there, clicking on settings. All right, let me get it rid of my face for a second. Right there on the settings. All right, hold on a second. All right, right there on the setting. Oh, I didn't. Oh, yeah. Hold on a second. You click on settings, and right there, you see it says audio track. Okay, so audio track English, and you can switch it to, again, whatever language you want. All right. So again, since this video was in English, most people will want to translate it to Spanish. Here, I'll give you an example. So look here, it's in Spanish, so you can see.
Hola chicos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos a otro episodio. En el episodio de hoy, estamos aquí en el Festival de Globos. Estamos en Tacne, Yucatán. Estamos a unos 30 o 45 minutos de las...
So as you guys can see, we got the captions in English, and I'm speaking in Spanish. All right, but again, this video was shot in English, so we just go back to English, all right? And we can, let's say subtitles, we can switch it to Spanish. All right, so I think we got to do, where's it, Spanish, and then subtitles, auto-translate, okay? But just long story short, you got all these options available now to most of my videos. So again, if you're out there and you want to listen to my video in Spanish, you guys can do so. And then the videos that I'm going to be doing in Spanish going forward, you guys can watch those in English. Okay, you see, it's in Spanish.
Estamos en un festival gigante. Parece que todo el mundo está aquí esta noche. Es sábado por la noche en un caluroso y húmedo agosto.
Anyways, all right, so, just a FYI, all right, for future... All right, for the future videos, okay? Anyways, shout out to Cats with the $5 super chat. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, look at this. Wow. Oh, we got GSD with the $20 super chat. Oh my goodness. Oh wow, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. All right. It's not even my birthday yet. How amazing is that? So by the way, in the next couple weeks, we're going to be celebrating some things on the channel. So let me see the schedule. Okay, yeah. Okay, so next week, we're probably on the live stream. We're going to be celebrating Mexico's birthday, even though Mexico's birthday is on the 15th and the 16th. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing next Thursday. We're going to figure something out. We're going to do something fun. But next week, we're going to be preemptively celebrating Mexico's birthday. And then the following week, we're going to be celebrating my birthday. Yeah, that's right, my birthday. It just so happened that 2 weeks from today, on the 18th, is my birthday. So, in 2 weeks from now, we're going to be celebrating Mexico's birthday, but really, we're going to be celebrating my birthday, all right? So, can't wait for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, shout out to everyone out there with, sending all the donations, all the super chats today, celebrating my birthday early. Muchas gracias. Mucho appreciated. Again, as you guys, were informed by the trolls during the live stream earlier today, I'm very poor. I don't even have power. I don't even have electricity, right? I don't got nothing. You know what I mean? So everything is, I don't even have shoes on right now. Anyways. Bruh. You ever seen those back behind the scenes, people, what was it like when they're like at the newscaster, the guy that's doing the news, your local news at 4 or whatever it is, and he's all dressed up with the suit and everything, and then from the waist down, he's in his underwear, basically. Yeah, you don't want to see me from the waist down. Anyways, so. Bruh. Anywho's, I look like Winnie the Pooh with my, Bruh. Anyways, so shout out to everyone out there. Mucho appreciated. Thank you very much. Oh, DB Goodman has a great question. It says, are the pet foods, pet litter, vet services more affordable in Mexico? Are there many veterinarians? Yes, 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 yes. So again, look, these are questions that I mean, there are no such things as dumb questions or anything like that. Okay, because a lot of times people, when they do consultations with me, they even say, "Oh, I know this might seem like a dumb question." Look, there's no such thing as dumb questions. Okay, if you don't know, you don't know. It's as simple as that. I didn't know until I knew. Okay, so look, let me explain it to you very simply. Okay, Mexico is a first world country. Okay, so everything that you have in the USA, we have here, but better in many cases. So, for example, when it comes to veterinary services, yeah. In fact, Gizmo's vet lives 2 blocks from the house, or actually less. All right. So if Gizmo ever has a problem, I just got to get him my phone. Beep, boop, 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 beep. All right. Beep, boop, 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 beep. I got to make the noise. If I don't make the noise, he doesn't. Anyway, so beep, boop, 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 beep. Like, hey, what's up? How's it going? Hey, Gizmo is blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, no problem. I'll be right over. So anyway, so you can and for in my case, our vet is a family friend, so I don't get charged anything. But let's just say I don't have a family friend that's a vet, and you need a vet to come do a house call. Because look, for example, Gizmo's a big dog, a medium-sized big dog, and I don't have a car. I don't have a whatever. I can't just jump in an Uber with my dog. So long story short, I gotta have vets do house visits, right? And they're charging like $25, give or take. All right. So I don't know what they charge, but it's not that much. All right. The groomer, well, Gizmo doesn't have a pet groomer anymore because Christian's doing all the pet grooming these days. But back in the day when we were at the other house, we had a pet groomer, come out there, and she used to charge us like I think like $12. 12 bucks to give him a bath, cut his nails, do the whole thing. All right, leave him nice and fluffy. All right, so it's very, very affordable. Now, when it comes to other vet care, also extremely affordable. So, for example, I get a giant bag, one of those 50-pound bags of kibbles and bits for Gizmo. I get that 50-pound bag of kibbles and bits for I think like $30, $40. Now, yes, granted, it's not the name brand Kibbles and Bits, but regardless, I'm able to feed my dog, all right, for months with like $30. Now, I go out of my way and I make, oh, the rain's coming. All right, here we go. Hopefully, we don't lose signal. But, anyways, if I do lose signal, if I go dark, the episode's over. Okay, I'll let God, you know, uh, basically decide when the show's over today. Okay, so with that said, yeah. So like I make food for him. So like I boil a whole chicken for him every week, and I mix it with rice and some sweet potato, and I feed that alongside some kibbles and bits, and that's his meal. So very affordable. All right. You can go to PetSmart, Petco, whatever. They got all those big chain stores out here as well. You can go to those places and get the insanely, crazy expensive. Wow, it's windy out there. Anyways, well, you hear that? Wow. Whoa, hold on a second. Hold on a second. One second. One second. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm back. I'm back. Oh yeah. No, it was like really, really windy. I was like, oh, what's going on? What window is open? Granted, the kitchen window was open. There's all this water coming in already. Anyways, all right. Good thing it was just in the kitchen. But yeah, long story short, you can get everything here. Okay, so my dog is my dog. You know what I mean? I'm not, I baby my dog. You know what I mean? Like I said, I make his meals every week and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, come on, you know what I mean? I'm not going to, these expensive places and buying them at really super duper expensive food that, again, I don't even buy for myself per se. All right. So, but it's available. If you want to go out there and you want to buy the same exact food brand that you buy at Petco or you buy at whatever fancy pet shop in the USA, they have it here. They have everything. Again, all the food, all the medicine, everything, every single thing that your little doggy or cat or pet rabbit wants. Because look, Christian's cousin, she has pets. She has pets rabbits. Okay, a bunch of little bunnies running around. So look, all I'm saying is that yes, you can get anything and everything. People in Mexico love animals. They love their pets. That's a big, big thing. So you'll be able to get all that. You'll be able to get, the medical services, and everything's a super affordable. So again, if medicine is affordable, all right, I gotta cut it. I'm gonna after this, I gotta end the show. Anyways, if you want, yeah. Sorry, sorry, I'm just trying to hurry because of the rain. What was I saying? Yeah. So if medicine is affordable for you and for me, for all of us out here, it's definitely affordable for your pets. Okay. So you're gonna be able to find anything and everything is a lot more affordable. Everything, right? Okay, or whatever. Okay. So, uh, Jonathan says, "Can you smoke herbs in Mexico? Are there herb vapes?" Well, you can smoke, but it's illegal and legal. All right. So, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end that with, I'm going to end the show with that real quick. I'll show you this video. Okay. Yeah. The thunder's coming. All right. I got to get going. All right. I got to go. This thing's about to die on me here. So, anyway, look, this video I am posting right now, okay, is for Jonathan. Okay. Watch that video. It'll answer your questions. But look, long story short, it's in the gray area right now. You can smoke it, but you cannot buy it. You cannot sell it. There's a lot of legal traps or whatever. So it's not like in the USA. All right, there are no shops. You can't really just get it like how you might want to get it in the USA. So. All right. I gotta get going, guys. The rain is coming on hard. All right. So, guys, you already know the deal. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thanks again for joining me today. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. And please, all right, hang out and join me later on today. We're going to be going live on my other channel. Okay. All right. We're going to go live over there. Hold on a second. Hey, come on. There we go. All right. So we're going to be going live over there. Let me put the link to that. So we're going to be going live in about 30 minutes, all right? I'm going to wait at least until the rain swings by, all right? Once the rain's done, we'll go live over there. So I'll see you guys.